December the 2nd, 1805. French Emperor, Napoleon Bonaparte, is carefully watching his daring battle plan unfold throughout the morning. His opponents, the Russian and Austrian commanders in the Third Coalition, have recklessly led their armies into his trap. By noon, Napoleon needs only to drive back the enemy, away from the central dominating high ground, of the Pratzen Heights, and then finish them off with a decisive counterattack to achieve victory. The French Grand Armée's resilience stems the tide of the Austro-Russian assaults on all fronts. A little after noon, the coalition armies finally realize that the tide of battle is turning against them, and they slowly stage a general withdrawal eastwards, while still fighting tenaciously at several key locations. The hilly rolling terrain, in the center of the battlefield, obscures movements of troops on both sides, leading to sudden clashes between the unsuspecting foes. In one such instance, while the retreating First Guard column of the Russian Imperial Guards is being led by Grand Duke Constantine, southeast towards the nearby village of Krenovitz, they spot the sudden appearance of French troops, moving almost parallel, some distance ahead of them. In this critical moment, the Russian Imperial Guard cavalry is thrown in, against the rear of what turns out to be the French infantry vanguard of Napoleon's strategic counterattack, in the center of the battlefield. These French infantry formations are taken by complete surprise, and are stopped in their tracks. Several battalions belonging to the 4th Line and the 24th Light French infantry regiments are put to flight by the shock attacks of the Russian Life Guard cavalry. In the hectic struggle, one of the battalion's Sacred Eagles is lost to the enemy. Napoleon and his staff are close at hand, at their new forward command post, on a summit, at Staravino Radi. They witness the surprising Russian Imperial Guard cavalry counterattack, posing a sudden threat to the rear of the French infantry brigades that are leading the central advance. After a brief confusion on the actual menacing situation, and then seeing, and failing in desperate appeals to halt an entire routed French infantry battalion of the 24th Light Infantry Regiment, the French Emperor reacts promptly. Napoleon sends one of his aides-de-camp, General Rapp, to summon the nearby reserve of the French Imperial Guard cavalry, to meet the bold Russian attack. Just before Rapp arrives to meet him, the commander of the Guard cavalry, General Bessièrres, had already spotted the Russian threat, and is rapidly deploying his legendary horsemen to respond, setting them up in an attack formation of 3 lines. In the first line, the first 2 squadrons of the Chasseurs of Cheval, under Colonel Morland, which are operating alongside the company of 50 Mamluks. Bessières promptly places this notorious and celebrated band of foreign warriors, under the command of General Rapp. In the second line, the 3rd and 4th squadrons of the Chasseurs, operating with the 5th squadron of the Grenadiers of Cheval, led by Brigadier General Dahlmann. In the rear, is the 3rd line, consisting of the first 4 squadrons of the Horse Grenadiers, led by Bessières himself. Supported by salvos fired from their own horse artillery of the Guard, the first line of the Chasseurs and Mamluks charge and drive back the Russian Life Guard Hussars regiment, which is still disorganized from their earlier pursuit of the French infantry battalions fleeing from them. Next, the French victors turn their sights on the 4 battalions from the 2 nearest Russian Imperial Guard infantry regiments, which are still heading towards, and nearing the vineyards, located just outside the village of Krenovitz. The Semenovsky Guard infantry regiment is at the tail end of the 1st Guard column, when they notice the oncoming squadrons of French Guard cavalry. The regiment quickly forms 2 battalion squares, and they fire destructive volleys at the first 2 lines of the French troopers that boldly attacks them. Supporting canister fire from a nearby Russian Guard battery of 8 guns also rips into the attackers, who turn back, and during this reversal, Colonel Morland is mortally wounded by the cannon fire. Constantine uses the hard-earned momentary respite to continue the original withdrawal order for his column of 7 battalions of guards, along with his supporting cavalry and artillery, heading southeast towards the safety of the nearby village of Krenovitz. Now leaderless, after the loss of their commander, the French Guard Chasseurs, 1st and 2nd squadrons, in the first line, are then led by General Rapp, joining his company of Mamluks. Rapp's new command continues to cooperate with General Dahlmann's 3 squadrons of Guard cavalry. Leading elements from French infantry reinforcements begin arriving, to join in the pursuit of Constantine's Guards column. Together, the French continue to closely harass the retreating Russian Guard infantry, and the menacing Guard troopers manage to capture a disabled Russian cannon. The Russian Life Guard Hussars, who were earlier scattered, reform into a shaky rearguard, which is promptly charged by the French Guard cavalry, and is thrown back into full retreat towards Krenovitz. General Rapp directs his troopers to attack the nearby isolated Russian artillery battery of 8 guns, that is in the rear of the withdrawing guard column. The gunners bravely and heroically fight back, and manage to bring away 4 of their guns, back to the safety of the village of Krenowitz, where several of the guard infantry battalions have already managed to finally reach, by 2 o'clock in the afternoon. But here, chaos reigns, as the village is filled with a huge and growing mob of coalition soldiers, all converging upon the choke point of a bridge that spans over a stream. 5 of the Russian Guard infantry battalions form a rearguard, astride a road leading to the village. Amid the deteriorating situation, the approaching French infantry and artillery are incessantly firing into the tightly packed masses of enemy targets. The French Guard cavalry close in once again, on the 2 battalions of the Semenovsky regiment. The Russian Guards react swiftly by changing their 2 battalions from line formations into seemingly impregnable battalion squares in a matter of moments. The brave attack of General Dahlmann and his force of squadrons of the Grenadiers and Chasseurs predictably breaks apart against the defiant square of Battalion 3 of the Semenovsky Guards. At the same time, General Rapp's force of Mamluks and Chasseurs performs an incredible feat against the other square of the Semenovsky Guards, belonging to its 1st battalion. A Mamluk lieutenant somehow chops his way into the Russian square, wreaking confusion within it, as he is brought down and bayoneted multiple times by the panicked Russian defenders. The golden opportunity of the hole created into the square is immediately seized upon by the remainder of the Mamluks, who pour through it, and they ferociously slash away with their deadly short sabers down upon the stunned Russian guardsmen, causing an irreversible mayhem. The square is broken and put to flight. A number of Russians and the battalion's flag are captured by the victorious little band of Mameluks, who watch their defeated opponents flee back to join the rest of the coalition fugitives, swamped inside Krenowitz. This shocking episode of the square being destroyed instigates the rest of the defending Russian Imperial Guard battalions to quickly wither away. The French army has split through the coalition army's battle line, and their success is now total. Napoleon observes his unstoppable army surge forward, across the Pratzen Heights, and beyond, to pursue the remains of the demoralized enemy coalition armies. The French emperor takes that moment to dispatch his first news back to Paris, announcing his decisive and monumental victory at the Battle of Austerlitz.